face to face with Christ my Savior. Face to face, what will it be? When with rapture I behold him, Jesus Christ who died for me. What rejoicing in his presence, when our banished grief and pain, when the crooked ways are straightened, and the dark things shall be plain. Face to face I shall behold him, far beyond the starry skies. Face to face in all his glory, I shall see him by and by. What rejoicing in his presence, when our banished grief and pain, when the crooked ways are straightened, and the dark things shall be plain. Face to face I shall behold him, far beyond the starry skies. Face to face in all his glory, I shall see him by and by. Wrong verse. That's okay.
You did well. Good. Thank you.
That was beautiful. I was going to share a few things about my dad. It's hard. It's a strange feeling to stand up here and try to sum up someone's life in a couple of minutes. A lot of my memories of my dad were from my childhood. We had a lot of fun times, from trips across country, driving here to Georgia, to shooting BBs in the backyard, to numerous just joking around, making up games in the living room, flipping quarters, getting them stuck in the garbage disposal. I want to talk a little bit about the last few years, because there was a lot in my dad's life that I would say there's a story that in there that it's worth retelling. It's such a powerful story. There's a story that I think is really there's a parallel in the Bible, and most people are familiar with the prodigal son and the story of that. And I don't want to stand here and describe him as a prodigal son, but the things that are sort of thought about when you think about the prodigal son are not necessarily sincere or things that you want to think about, but there's a lot of parallels in that are just so good. I think it's worth sharing. One of the prodigal son, he was given an inheritance, and he said to his father, I want my inheritance and I want to take it and go. And he did, and he spent all of his inheritance. He spent his money, and he lived a life that he wanted to live. And then I looked at multiple translations, and it says, and he came to his senses while he was, eating with the pigs. He came to his senses. He was in a foreign land. He came to his senses. And just to pause on that for a minute, there's another quote I wrote down. It's to the prodigals that the memory of their father's house comes back. If the son had lived economically, he would have never thought of returning. And when I read that, I think my dad knew what was offered from his father. He knew the grace that's the way our Father operates. It's not an economy of you do good, you do this, and you get that. You get what you deserve. Our Father does not work in that way. His economy is grace-based. And I think in some sense, my dad came to his senses in a way, and he knew he had nothing left. You know, the prodigal son had spent everything he had. He didn't have much left. And, you know, I think my dad reached a point there in his life, and he came to his senses and knew how good his father is, and realized that he doesn't have anything to offer. And so he came with open hands. And so, you know, and practically how I think that worked out in his life. And I think now in heaven, he's experiencing, you know, God's grace face to face. Jesus came to this earth full of grace and truth. Jesus is the embodiment of grace. But in a real practical sense, I think my dad experienced a lot of grace. You know, the last little part of what I read from his obituary is, you know, a little snippet, but, you know, he moved with us into College Station. He moved from a foreign land, as he would call it, not God's country. He moved from Seattle, Washington, to college, back to Texas. And he came, and you know, it was funny. I feel like my parents started dating in their
Junior year.
70s, late 70s.
60s, we got married in
Late
66,
60s and
yeah.
70s, started dating again. And he needed help. He was surrounded by nurses in his life, and he needed some help. And I feel like my mom was an instrument of, you know, an agent of mercy and in his life, and freely offered a gift similar to what we're offered by God. It's, you don't deserve this. You didn't earn it, but I'm going to give it to you. And I don't say this to discount my dad's life or any of the experiences that he had, but I want to say that that's such a powerful thing, that God brings us through all sorts of things and uses the experiences in our lives, not so that we get to show how good we are, but that we aren't good enough. We'll never be good enough. The only thing that we can offer to God is our acceptance of his grace. And so there was a really awesome last five years or so of his life where we got to reconnect. We got to create a lot of new memories. You know, there was a lot of gap where in my life, there was just not a lot of memories, a lot of things that we got to experience together. But it was such a sweet time. And, you know, thinking, if that hadn't happened, if my parents didn't reconcile, remarry, I wouldn't want to stand up here and try to talk about how his life, but it ended so sweetly. To have that reconciliation, to be able to die at home with his devoted and loving wife by his side. I get to tell that story to my friends. You know, they ask, you know, if I haven't seen him in a while, you know, have I talked to you in the last few years? No. Did I tell you the story about my parents? It's pretty incredible. You know, I just wanted to make sure that I feel like he would be overjoyed to know that that's, I wouldn't say that defines his life, but the fact that there's such it's extreme grace that he experienced. And it's you know, like the story of the prodigal son, I think when Jesus told that story, he was meant to shock. People were meant to be shocked because the world doesn't operate that way. And so it's a real true story that happened in our midst. And I'm just, it resonates deeply with me. I hope it does with you. Yeah. I'd like to open up for anyone else that wants to come up and share. Feel free to come up. You can, if you have something prepared or not, it's okay. Just open your heart up and